Hey, what's up guys, Nate here from Protoculture. Welcome back to another Sonic Academy video, and V Collection 9 from Arturia is out. There's a bunch of new updates as well as some new additions to their collection of instruments. We're going to be taking a look at all the new stuff in V Collection 9 today. This includes 4 brand new instruments that have joined the lineup, as well as 4 major updates to existing instruments in the library already. Let's dive in. We're going to take a brief look at all of the new additions. Let's check it out. Right, so first in the lineup is the brand new Korg MS-20 V, a classic little synth. It's a great addition to this collection of instruments. Now, I'm not personally too bothered with how accurate this is. I don't have an MS-20 yet to compare the two, and frankly, I don't usually care as long as the sound is good and fun to play with. However, I will say that the MS-20 really is such a unique synth, and you have to nail the filter on this to get that sort of signature sound. So the first thing that we're going to do with this one is just get a new preset. Got a saw wave up there, and let's just check out the filter, and I think they've done a pretty good job of this. That signature screeching that you get from that as soon as you turn the resonance up. Let's check out the high pass filter with that as well. I think that sounds pretty decent. There's a bunch of additional features in here that you wouldn't get on an original MS-20 either. You can get this in polyphonic mode as well, down at the bottom, up to 6 voices. All the usual controls are here. They've also included a rather nifty little analog style sequencer up the top here, which is a really nice little addition. And then, of course, the effects, which you'll see a lot in the new updates as well, the sort of standard Arturia effects grid layout that they've got in all of their new updates. Let's check out some of the presets for this. Of course, when you find a preset called Puking Telephone, you got to give that a go. Yeah, I think that's suitably dirty and filthy. I love the sound that I get out of this, and I think this is a fantastic version of the MS-20. Really cool to have this in the V Collection 9. Let's jump into the next one. This one's been out for a while already, but it's now part of V Collection 9. So if you didn't pick this up prior to V Collection 9 coming out, you can grab this now as part of the bundle. This is the SQ80V. It's obviously based on the Onsonic classic digital keyboard from the 80s. And unfortunately, you're not locked into any of the horrible menu diving that was on the original synths. If you jump into the synthesis page here, it's a fairly neatly laid out system. These signature trance wave oscillators you have here from the original synth, and some really, really cool digital 80s sounding vibes that you get out of this one. It does also import sysx data from the original keyboard, so there are thousands of presets floating around there that you can get for this as well online. So go check that out as well. Let's take a listen to a few of the sounds. Right, so the two other new additions that we've got in V Collection 9 is the Augmented series. It's a new range of instruments Arturia has been putting together. The first two being Augmented Strings and Augmented Voices. I was pretty surprised with these two libraries. I'm sure a lot of you have picked up the intro version for this that was available for free for a little bit. That had some pretty impressive patches in it already, but this kind of steps up the game a whole lot. There's a boatload more presets in here. There's a ton of additional samples on hand, and it also now unlocks the advanced tab here, which is surprisingly deep. There's a lot of editing that you can do here. We'll take a look at this. Just these sounds, you've got a sort of selection of hybrid string patches, everything from sort of more traditional stuff right through to the sort of more hybrid side of things. Even some sequences as well. It's a really fantastic library. So there's some really interesting material in here as far as these sounds are concerned. I want to also just show you around the advanced tab now as well. It's essentially kind of a modified version of pigments that we have here. And it's quite easy to blend stuff together and make your own sort of concoctions of these sounds on hand. You've got two layers on hand, layer A and B, and inside of those you have on hand two sample sources that you can use. These can also be moved around as well, so you don't need to have them all on one side. You could have a synth and a sampler on one layer and so forth. Bring that one back again. And then on the synth side of things, you've got a number of different options here too. If you bring up one of the presets, you've got analog, granular, harmonic, and wavetable. So if you've got pigments, you should be pretty familiar with the controls on hand for this. We'll go with the granular sound here, for example, and let's bring in a layer there. Once you've got your sound selection there, you can dial in the amp for this one. Let's bring in another one here too, and we'll just choose another preset. Let's go with something wavetable based for this, or perhaps analog string patch maybe. Let's do something like that one. And you have separate envelope controls for each of these sound sources, as well as control over some of the actual oscillators themselves, so you can blend the oscillators in and out, noise, FM, so forth. And this varies from part to part. Here you've got the granular controls, you see the analog controls there, and then you've got a global filter for that layer. Just disable that one. obviously with envelope controls for the filter too. And then your sampler section, we can bring in sample sources here. Let's go with sustained loud that we have there. We can bring in another one, maybe use the harmonics that we have here. You've got some controls over mic positions. Well, I'm not sure if it's multiple mic positions, but some control over the distance, the perceived distance of the sounds from a microphone, with volume controls as well. Back to this one. So pretty quick and easy to get some layers going and kind of build up your own sounds from this with a lot of control that you have here. You can jump into the modulation page as well. This should also be familiar to Pigments users. You've got the readouts here from the sort of CV controls or control data. Everything from LFOs, a pair of those. Function generators, a pair of those as well. Random generators, and then your key controls, velocity, aftertouch, and so forth. It's pretty simple to assign that to anything. You could just grab an LFO and then assign it to cutoff, for example. You've also got an arpeggiator included here and the effects section. And again, with the effects section, you've got a per layer section. So you've got 2 effects per layer each. And then you have the main effects section, which is a delay and a reverb, with some different algorithms. You have pitch shifting, tape, and then the same for convolution and digital. If you're doing sort of slightly more traditional string sounds, you may want to dial in that convolution reverb. It's there for you if you need it. Lastly, macros. You can see what's being modulated by your macros, which show up on the front page here. So this can be fairly simple to use. If you're just using this as a library, you don't need to delve into the advanced tab. You've got a lot of control over this as well. Let's take a listen to some of the sounds in the Augmented Voices library. You can play around with the morphing controls. And various other different macros that we have on hand. Some interesting stuff going on here. I do personally prefer the Augmented Strings library. There's a lot more stuff in there that I find useful, although there is some pretty interesting stuff going on with the vocal stuff too. Personally, I can't wait to see what they come up with after these. I think this is going to be a series of instruments that they keep bringing out new ideas with, or new sonic territory that they're going to be covering with these. I think they're great additions to the V Collection 9, and it's a step in a new direction for Arturia as well. It's not based on, synths or any real instruments. I like this kind of hybrid ground that they're covering with both of these libraries. Great additions as well. Highly recommend these two. So let's get into the updates now. 4 of the instruments, or should I say 3 of the instruments, have now become 4, and they've been given a sort of major overhaul, bringing them up to speed with some of the new instruments like the Jupiter and the Juno and so forth. Very similar structure to the plugin now. You've got the advanced tab with the new effects browser and some extra modulation capabilities. The first one we're taking a look at here is the CS80V. This is the version 4 of this. Let's take a listen to this guy. Obviously the Blade Runner synth this. I love the sound of this. So if you've used the CS80 before, you may be wondering what's going on. There's a lot of extra motion and stuff, partly because they've added this new advanced tab in here. You've now got the same modulation, the function generators that you have in some of the new instruments like the Jupiter and the Juno, as I said. Extra LFOs, extra envelopes. These can function as LFOs or as envelopes. You've got 3 of those that can be assigned to 3 destinations per function generator. You've also got the keyboard section now where you can assign velocity, aftertouch, and so on to various controls. And then your effects browser, again, standard Arturia V that's going on here. Multiple different effects that you can load up here. A lot of these coming out of Pigments as well as things like the chorus from the Juno, for example. Some interesting stuff that you can do here. And it does kind of give this synth a new lease on life. They've also tidied up the UI quite dramatically. I way prefer this now. It's a much cleaner look and overall just feels a lot nicer and newer and more inspiring to program. We'll take a listen to 1 or 2 more sounds here. We're going to go straight to the pad section with the CS80. Reverb on this. Obviously, as well, with all the new features, there's a ton of new presets here. And as far as I know, it doesn't overwrite the original V3 version as well. So if you do have that and you need backwards compatibility with that, it does stay there. Which brings me to one of my favorite synths of all time, and that is the Prophet 5. Now, previously, the Prophet 5 and the VS were contained together. They've done away with that. It's now its own synth. It's been given a complete overhaul. The UI is brand new. It sounds pretty great as far as I can tell. Once again, you've got the advanced tab in here with a bunch of modulation options. In this one, you've got 2 different function generators or LFO, a second LFO, as well as a function generator. Keyboard controls once again. You've got some effects built in here. This is actually one of the original factory presets. Let's go and chuck some reverb on that one just to kind of bring it up to speed, a little bit more modern. I do use Repro quite a lot, which is one of my favorite plugins, and also a fairly close recreation of the Prophet 5. They do sound fairly similar. I find the Arturia one is a little bit brighter, the filters, but again, I think the essence of the synth is pretty much captured fairly well here, and I really like the new UI. I wasn't a fan of the original setup that they had before with the 2 together. There's also an arpeggio included on this one. Right, so let's check out the other half of the original bundle, which is the Prophet VS, the classic vector synth from Sequential, up in the classic 80s synth as well. Here we have the Prophet VS, again, brand new interface. So you've got additional controls for the mixer. Obviously, the vector synth blends between waveforms on this sort of crossfader here. And you can actually generate motion here by adding in points that the crossfader will, or the joystick would move through. Also got control of the filter envelope and the amp envelope from here. You've got additional modulations, once again, function generators, 3 of those that can be assigned to various different places through the matrix over here. And then your effects section, again, standard with all of the new Arturia synths. Let's take a listen to 1 or 2 other sounds from this. And one nice thing that they do as well is all of the original sounds from the original keyboard are in here as well, the original factory presets. So if you're looking for that sort of authenticity, they're all there for you, along with a lot of the newer stuff like this. Right, so the last update that we're going to check out is a pretty significant one as well, and this is to Piano V, which is now at version 3. Now, this is a physically modeled piano, so it's not a sample library, which also gives you an incredible amount of control over your piano sound. So like the version 2, you've got various different models here that you can grab, American Grand, for example. All with their own sort of unique timbre. You've got some quick controls here to change the sounds, the dynamics, for example, the stereo width, or the brightness. Great if you want to get sort of nice intimate tones out of the piano. But we can now also dive into the Advanced tab as well. Let's come back to the German Grand, which I think is probably my favorite of the models. But now in the Advanced tab, so you've got some effects on hand here. You can dial in compression, you've got an equalizer, a preamp as well. You can actually add some drive to these sounds. Reverb, fairly a wide selection of different spaces that you can seat your piano in. But then we can also tune the actual model itself. So let's take a listen to some of the controls that we have here. For instance, the action of the hammers on the strings. Play around with the hardness, for example. Which radically alters the tone of the piano. Hammer position, for example. Also have control over the tuning of the strings. It's tuning it up, down. We can add stretch to these strings. As well as dial in the edge, which will kind of put it out of tune as well. And the unison detune. And then the acoustics as well, we can adjust the lid position, sympathetic resonances between the strings. If we increase that, you'll hear the strings resonating on other notes as you play one. You can hear those low sort of bass tones come in, that's from the sympathetic resonance, and you can kind of hear it almost feeding back on itself. And the soundboard resonance as well. And then you have controls over the actual mechanical noises of the piano, as well as the stand pedal, key releases, and hammer. And lastly, mic positions, stereo width, how much the ambient mic mix you want to put in, and various mic models too: mono, classical, home, pop. So pretty impressive amount of control over the tones of your piano. I really like this. I think it's very quick and easy to dial in. The other benefit as well is you're not dealing with massive sample libraries, so the load time and the time it takes to adjust the tone to what you want it to be is pretty minimal and very immediate and quite user-friendly as well. Right, so that pretty much brings me to the end of the new features in V Collection 9. Obviously, Analogue Lab itself has been updated as well to include all of the new features and instruments, so you can access all of the presets from one place inside of Analogue Lab 5. All in all, I think it's a great addition to their sort of flagship library of instruments. I particularly like the MS-20 and the Augmented Strings libraries. I think I'll get a lot of use out of those. As for the rest of the synths, the updates are very welcome as well, specifically the CS80 I really like, as well as the Prophet 5. But do go check this out. I think it's well worth upgrading, especially if you are already inside of that Arturia space. Definitely go check this out. There should be upgrade options available for this as well, so check your Arturia account and see what they have to offer at launch. But highly recommend you go and take a look at these and enjoy playing around with the new instruments. I will catch you soon again here at Sonic Academy. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till then, take care. See you soon.
Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate all the support from you guys. If you love this video, then smash a like, and if you want to be notified about new videos, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. Peace!